Voting is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Shock and consternation in Limbe today as the director of the Multipurpose Youth Center in Limbe allegedly committed suicide. His lifeless body was found hanging from a rope in his office earlier today. What might have caused the director to kill himself? Our correspondent in Limbe, Davidson Maimo, will be telling us more in this edition of the news. And bloodshed continues to spill on in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country as the lifeless bodies of some 2 men were also found at Mancho Street in Bamenda today. Details of those stories and more when we come back. Good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us on this edition of the news. In the northwest region of Cameroon, more blood has been spilled as the Anglophone crisis continues to count its casualties. 2 unidentified bodies were deposited at Mancho Street in Bamenda recently, and sources claimed they were separatist fighters killed by forces of law and order. Let's now have more of the stories with Manjikan Gabriel, who now also tells us that 2 persons have been buried in Oku after a bloody battle that took place among family members.
2 lifeless bodies lying on the street. We are in Mancho Street in Bamenda, Northwest region. It was about 4 a.m. when we heard noise outside, and my wife thought it was shooting stars.
Gone for. You check sometimes na shooting star. Now my madam they ask me say, now would they shooting stars so today na some big day? I say I don't know.
After some times we heard the sound again, but this time accompanied with the cry of someone in pains. 2 minutes later, the shooting increased. We only woke up later to discover the dead bodies.
When I woke up for bed now the morning time, so we see na 2 cops where they don't kill them.
It was alleged that the 2 who were killed were separatist fighters who had a confrontation with the military. Unfortunately, the corpses that were deposited at Mancho Street were not identified by any in the neighborhood.
We don't know who the people. It shows that people the way they bring them from different sides.
We don't know the people. It shows they were killed in another area, then brought here. We thought it was our neighbors, but no. No one in the neighborhood identifies them.
No man of you identify them.
Even with the corpses around, activities were still going on hitch-free at Mancho Street. In Oku, it was a man who was beaten to death by the natives. The man is accused of killing the wife of his brother with a machete. According to reports, the man drove away the daughter of the woman before cutting her. Unfortunately, the woman didn't make it on the way to the hospital.
And over to this other sad news story. Inhabitants of Limbe are still in shock after the director of the Multipurpose Youth Center in Limbe allegedly committed suicide earlier today. His lifeless body was found hanging in his office, and the body was discovered by colleagues today at about 9 a.m. The remains have been deposited at the Limbe Regional Hospital mortuary pending investigations. Davidson Maimo, Farsin Mo from Limbe.
Fred Sone was the director of the Multipurpose Youth Development Center under the Divisional Delegation of Youth Affairs in Limbe. The circumstances surrounding his death is not clear, as sources close to him say he was at the office yesterday, not sick, and did not show any sign of depression. However, a note on his desk suspected to have been written by him says, "I prefer to die and protect my family." It is equally said by colleagues that on his WhatsApp status yesterday he wrote, "Beware of some of the sites you visit on the internet." Given that his remains was still fresh and warm, his phone on the table, and his usual work bag close to him, it is suspected he hung himself early this morning. Though his mortal remains have been deposited at the Limbe Regional Hospital mortuary, the result of an autopsy conducted is yet to be made public, while the forces of law and order have opened an investigation to ascertain the real cause of his death. He was married and a father of one.
Away from those sad elements, about 93 Cameroonians from different regions are being trained at the National School of Local Administration, NASLA, in Boya to serve as municipal police agents in different municipal councils in the country. And they are expected to bring peace in the sector following the existing tension between municipal police agents and road users or automobile users. To see this come to a reality, the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development met with other officials at NASLA in Limbe. Let's now have more, or in Buya, let's now have more with Mala Glory.
The frequent confrontation between municipal police agents and automobile users has raised concern to municipal councillors and the population. To ensure that they are properly trained, the Minister of Decentralization, George Elanga-Obam, and other government officials were at the NASLA, National School of Local Administration in Boye, Southwest Region, to evaluate the quality of instructors and the learning environment for the first batch.
I think I can say in conclusion that all the elements are together to have a good training process for good municipal police. But still, it's the theory. We are eager to see the end of the thing in 3 months and to look how they are working on the field.
The minister reiterated during the meeting that only those trained and approved by NASLA should be recruited as municipal police, and also urged all municipalities to send their agents for training. He believes after here, the 93 trainees will be able to do a good job on the field.
I want them to be citizens who are contributing to the development of their territories, who are helping the population to be in good mood while living in the society, to help the elders, to help the kids, to make sure that what is said in market is good quality. I want the life to change in our cities because they are doing the job the way it is expected. This is the main change I'm getting.
At the end of their meeting, the minister, the governor of the Southwest region, Bernard Okala Bilai, as well as other dignitaries, inaugurated the new NASLA administrative block, which is expected to serve the purpose of a quality training.
In other news, we come back to this story. Priests of the Roman Catholic Church in the West region of Cameroon have enjoined their Christians to snub somehow the intimidations from traditional leaders who, in an open letter addressed to the Bishop of the Bafoussam Diocese, demanded that the Catholic Church should stop using traditional items and performing cultural activities during masses. The priests, while addressing the Christians in the presence of the media, encouraged them to amplify the practice of tradition in church to honor the King of Kings, who is Jesus Christ. Let's now have more with Innocent Aze.
After the bitter open letter of 15 traditional rulers of the West region addressed to the Bishop of Bafoussam, His Lordship Paul Lonsey Kerner, days back, priests of the Bafoussam Diocese did not hesitate to react. In the presence of their Christians, the priest told them not to succumb to the chief's order to stop wearing cultural fabrics and making use of cultural instruments, as well as performing cultural activities in the church. They ordered their Christians to rather amplify the use, perform more cultural activities, and wear more of traditional fabrics to honor the King of Kings. It is in honor of Jesus Christ that we wear these cultural fabrics and encourage you to do same or print cultural attributes on your t-shirts or dress. These priests see as hypocrites some signatories of the letter who present themselves as victims, whereas they have always advanced provocative words and actions against the Catholic Church. On Saturday, April 6, 2024, the paramount chief of Bafou and other accompanying chiefs arrived at the funeral when a mass requested by the family of the deceased had already started. To announce his presence, he ordered for interruption of the mass so that he can pay his condolences to the family before any other burial rites were performed. Despite the impossibility to interrupt the Eucharistic celebration, the priest grants to his demand. He understood very well it was a trap. To the greatest surprise of all, it was instead a long traditional funeral ceremony that interrupted definitely the funeral mass.
Qui a interrompu définitivement la messe.
To them, the outing of the Bishop of Bafoussam during an ecclesiastic celebration in Bafou in the Manual Division was an expression of anger. The bishop reacted in anger because it was a bitter provocation by the chiefs to his person, charged with the protection of the Catholic doctrine and beliefs. He expressed his indignation, reminding the chiefs of the sufferings and injustices they infringe and met unjustly and illegally on all the Catholic churches in Bafoussam under him.
Donc il a la responsabilité première.
In addition, the priests say the Catholic Church in the West region has no problem with chiefdoms and their traditional practices. They pledge to continue praying for the chiefs and also the bishop.
Hopefully, peace finally reigns between the church in the West region and the traditional rulers. We stay with you as you tell us this time around that despite efforts by municipal councillors or authorities and also after the killing of a woman months back by a train, traders at the Nyala Rye Market in the Douala 3 area continue selling on the rails frequented by trains. They complain of unavailability of market space. Some say they have no choice than to take the risk to sell on the rails in order to be able to feed their families.
The biggest and busiest commercial areas in the Douala 3 subdivision. Traders are found everywhere, along the roads and right on the rails frequented by trains, despite the danger involved.
Non, l'ocran, on n'a pas de problème avec l'ocran. Quand il passe, maman, on lui dit bye bye, ça va. On lui fait même les bisous. Ça fait pratique.
She has been selling on the rails for over 5 years now and is aware of the risk, but she takes the risk for her family's well-being. She is not at ease and frightened by the vibration of the train. Few months ago, a woman who dashed out of her meeting to ease herself on the rails was killed by a train. Despite witnessing the tragedy, no lesson was learned by the traders to quit the area definitely.
On a vu, c'était dans la soirée. On aura peur que nos enfants vont manger quoi?
We don't have a choice. It is left for us to be vigilant. With the difficulties to chase away traders from the rails by municipal authorities, agents in charge of railway maintenance and security are present to enhance safety of the businessmen and women.
Les allées du train sont avisées par des signalisations.
We place warning boards at every 1 kilometer and triangles at every 100 meters. We also clear the rails from obstacles that may cause the train to derail. Around this market area, there are signs that trains can pass without slowing down, but people do not respect them. They violate and cross the rails any moment and anyhow, risking their lives. With continuation of business activities on the rails at the Nyala Rye Market, it shows the laxity of municipal authorities to take concrete actions to send away the traders or relocate them to a new area as they have requested, given that they pay daily dues to the council.
And now we take you out of our national frontiers. Pan-African activist Semi Keba celebrates the withdrawal of his French nationality, which he described some time ago as a burden. And over to Rwanda, Rwanda says it cannot be compelled to return the money given to her in the context of the asylum deportation deal with the UK. Let's now have a foreign page roundup with Babula Jonathan.
He became known for his activism against neocolonialism, his violent anti-Western positions, and his radical comments on France. The Beninese Pan-Africanist activist Kim Saba, whose real name is Stelio Gilles Robert Capochichi, expressed happiness over the fact that the government of France has decided to deprive him of his French nationality. He was quick to share his reactions on X, and he said, "No more French nationality. Glory to God. I am free from this burden." Kim Saba's lawyer, Juan Branco, thinks that the decision was taken by the French government due to his origins. In France, Kim Saba was accused last year of being a relay for Russian propaganda. Rwanda's deputy government spokesperson has said that the agreement with the UK to deport asylum seekers to the East African nation included no stipulation about repaying funds. This comes after the UK's incoming Labour leader said that the controversial scheme was dead and his government vowed to scrap the policy. The plan was built by the previous British government as a solution that would deter migrants from risking their lives on a journey to illegally enter the UK, as they could be deported to East Africa. It has cost the government $300 million and court battles, with no deportation flight taken off so far. French President Emmanuel Macron breaks silence and urges new mainstream coalition and warns against machinations. President Emmanuel Macron called on mainstream parties to join forces to form a solid majority in the National Assembly in his first public comments since Sunday's election delivered the parliamentary deadlock, with three political divergent blocs and no obvious path to form a government.
And now sports. Before we move over to the second part of the news, the 6 athletes to fly the flag of Cameroon at the Olympic Games in Paris, France have left the country. Emmanuel Alobode has been tipped as favorites to win a gold medal. In the report which comes up next, Manjikan Gabriel presents the chances of Team Cameroon in Paris.
Among the 6 athletes who will be representing Cameroon at the Summer Olympics in Paris, France, is Emmanuel Alobode. It will be the second consecutive participation for the sprinter at the summer event after he got a taste of the Olympic Games when Tokyo hosted in 2020. Emmanuel Alobode, who participated only in the 200 meters heat event, finished 4th. But heading to the Olympic Games in Paris, France, many will be looking up to Emmanuel Alobode in the 100 meters men's race. Apart from the gold medal won at the Diamond League Open in Morocco, Emmanuel Alobode has slumped in 2 other outings in Oslo and Douala recently. At one of his preparative races in Sotteville-le-Rouen, Emmanuel Alobode came first and did the race in 10:11 seconds. He goes to France with a gold medal he won last year during the African Games held in Ghana. He remains one of the main gold medal hopeful for Cameroon. Another medal hopeful is table tennis maestro Sarah Hamfo. It will be her 3rd appearance at the Olympic Games. Sarah Hamfo's best result was in London in 2012 when she crossed the preliminary rounds of the tournament. Eseme Alobode and Sarah Hamfo are experienced in the Olympic Games. It will be a baptism of fire for Richelle Sopimbela in judo, Jojo Kamsu Amani in the 100 meters men's freestyle, and Grace Manuela Nguelo in the women's 50 meters freestyle, and Linda Angunu in the women's 400 meters hurdles.
Thanks, Matt. That brings us to the end of the first part of the news. Talking Point comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is S Abang. He is an education stakeholder and also a senior teacher at the government bilingual high school, Moliko Boya. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Now, recently, the Minister for Secondary Education, Professor Nalova Lyonga, suspended the payment of PTA levies in public schools for this academic year. As a teacher and someone who has been practicing for so long, what do you think might have pushed the minister to take such a decision at this moment?
Good evening, and good morning Good evening to the millions of Equinoxe television viewers across the national territory and beyond. Yes, responding to your question, I saw on social media via a communique signed by the regional delegate for secondary education, I'm sure for the West region, passing out instructions to divisional delegates. Contrary to what was speculated once that document appeared on social media, it is not, and it should not be confused with the scraping off of the payment of PTA levies in public schools. No, not at all. It has nothing to do with the non-payment of PTA levies, but it is rather a cautionary decision by the minister to ensure that to ensure transparency and to prevent mismanagement and embezzlement of PTA levies and other levies, because from what is being circulated and speculated on the social media platforms, it would give one the impression that it is limited only to PTA levies. No, it is a holistic decision that concerns and includes the payment of all other secondary school related levies, including PTA levies, including registration levies, including end of course certificate exams levies. And so it is a cautionary decision by the minister to prevent and to avoid unpleasant situations that we have had in the past, where school heads, administrators, and PTA officials start collecting levies of all sorts before the appropriate moment. So I'm sure it has nothing to do with the cancellation of PTA levies, but just a cautionary move to prevent theft, mismanagement, and embezzlement.
And now, Mr. Sama Mungwa, we might want to find out from you also, how is that decision going to reduce the so many complaints from parents on some irregularities which usually surface during back-to-school period?
It has nothing to do with the preparations of parents. Parents will still carry on with their back-to-school preparations. It only has to do with management of money that is effectively collected and not properly managed. It's unfortunate that as much as I hail this move, this proactive move by the minister, part of the blame is still at her doorsteps. Because we'll find situations where school heads in public schools, school heads in connivance with some PTA executive members will collect registration levies and PTA levies and other levies, and when eventually at the start of the new academic year, the school heads are transferred, before the new school head comes in, the outgone had already collected and mismanaged and embezzled money that was supposed to be used for a current school year. And so there is a period, a window period, where the minister thinks that it will be appropriate for such collections to be done, where we can be sure that they will not be embezzled and they will not be mismanaged. We have had cases where school administrators collect, hurriedly misuse, especially those who know that they will be replaced where they are due retirement, and they know that they will not be in that same school, or they will not have the opportunity to be transferred to another school because they have attained retirement age. And so they collect and embezzle, and with some flimsy justifications. Again, but I said part of the blame is at the doorsteps of the minister, because it is an embarrassment. It is an administrative embarrassment, an aberration, that for an event that is as certain as daylight and darkness, you will find the minister over the years would stall transfers and appointments and up to December, which means that you will find principals who are due retirement in January of the previous year, and who know that the new school year will not be for them, but they will still be in place up to December. And that creates room and opportunities for such unfortunate situations of embezzlement.
And now this first question, Mr. Sama Abang. Can't public schools really survive without PTA levies? Is there no possibility for PTA levies to be scraped off?
No, and completely out of place. Instead, rather, you should foresee a situation where the burden of responsibility in the financing of education in the public schools would rather rise 10% the state and 90% the government. To imagine that we would ever get to a stage where government would single-handedly shoulder its responsibility as it ought to be the case, it's completely unfathomable. I don't expect it. Rather, I see with the failures and the shortcomings of the government, we'll see a situation where PTA levies would continue to increase, to rise in the public schools as government continues to shy away from its responsibilities. We have seen that exist in so many other sectors. We might only find sectors like the armed forces, security, and the military where government cannot bring in private partnership. But with education, I do not imagine a situation in this country where government will be able to, this same mischievous government that we have, would be able to single-handedly carry out its responsibility and remove the burden of PTA from the parents. Rather, I foresee a situation where the burden would shift more onto the shoulders of the parents as government continues to fail in its mission and in its responsibility towards its citizens.
Now, before we go, Mr. Sama Abang, you're a teacher. You've been teaching for a very long time. You've taught in the Northwest and the Southwest regions. Most often, we get complaints of PTA fees varying from one public school to the other. How can we explain there is a disparity in amounts paid in government schools across the country?
Ask yourself, what is the raison d'etre of PTA? What's the rationale for PTA? And what was the philosophy behind the creation of PTAs? Now, if you look at law number 98/04 of 14th of April 1998, laying down the modalities for the promotion of education in Cameroon, in its Article 11, I'm sure, unless I'm mistaken, it is stipulated that the implementation of the educational policy of the state is the responsibility of the state in partnership with other stakeholders. And amongst those other stakeholders, it includes families. And when you talk of families, you are talking of parents. And so it was on that basis that the concept of PTA was introduced. And again, it is simply because as much as we know that the provision of education, the guarantee of education of citizens is a human right that every citizen is entitled to, and which is the responsibility of the state, of the government. Government realized that because of its economic inefficiencies and financial difficulties, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Sama Abang, for those explanations. Thank you for your time, and hope to have you some other time. That brings us to the end of the news. Viewers, thank you so much for always being there. Don't go away. Our programs continue. Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m. That will be in about 30 minutes with Serge Alangoto, and Irish Ngonomala will be here at 8 p.m. for the news in the French language. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.